Okay, welcome back to some solo role manging with Shadowdark, Shadowbrook Manor. Uh, you know, decently creepy house so far. We've encountered a ghoul and a zombie butler, somewhat friendly uh boar. That's kind of it. We saw a skeleton, and we did find a couple magic robes. I don't know if these four characters would know that they're magical, but they definitely look special, I suppose. They look nicer than the other normal robes hanging on the hooks. So, whether they're magical or not, they look like they might fetch some coin. So, I forgot to award XP for the cloaks. So, we'll just go ahead and grab 1 XP for each. Technically, one of them is a cursed item that has really almost no value to anyone. Um, so really, we're just like taking the XP for the Holocaust cloak that we grabbed. Okay. So we're in room number 2. We're in the entryway here. We're gonna continue on. Let's start the torch timer again. It's 16 minutes on the clock there, and let's head north and then west along this hallway. And so we've got a door right there on our right to room number 12. We will have the priest, as usual, kind of listen at the door, see if he hears any shuffling. Well, he got a 19, so if he hears anything there, we will know. It's an unmarked room. Strange magical runes have been burned into the lintel above the door to this room. Only a read magic spell can render the runes intelligible. Roughly translated, they read, "This space intentionally left blank." The door refuses to open. Breaking it down reveals a blank void. Entering the void renders a character void. Okay. How would I describe it then? I picture. I guess I'd describe it as like just like a completely featureless door. Like they can tell that it's a wooden door, but there's no doorknob. There's no any indications of any kind, and if they push on it, it just is like almost a solid piece of wood, and the priest absolutely does not hear a single thing coming from the other side of it. Uh, yeah, I mean, we'll move down because, again, like, I could break it, but then that would make a lot of noise, and then we'd see the void, and then I'd have to do something really just intentionally stupid walking into the void. But I do like that room. That is a fun room for players to kind of discover, I think. Moving on, we see the hallway. Continue branching to the right, and then there's a set of double doors on our left. So we'll have the priest listen again. All right, he did not complete that one. So we're going in blind. We will have the fighter just crack open the door, see what we see at room number 5. Trying to shed a little bit of light in. It's a library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line the walls of this large chamber. And we can barely make out a humanoid figure floating silently along the far wall. Yeah, I mean, it's a banshee. I don't know if we have stats in here for a banshee. Could be. No, we do not have stats in the core rulebook for a banshee. I have unnatural selections here, which might have a banshee. No? No banshee there. I'd have to then... One of the cursed scrolls might have it. But assuming we couldn't find stats for a Shadowdark Banshee, you know, we could just go off of the stats presented here, which is pretty hefty. It's got an AC of 16. It's got 32 health or something. Because it's technically like a level 8 creature. It's got a wailing attack. Does 1d6 damage. And a morale of 12, which I think is a 2d6 roll, I believe. So you'd have to roll a 2d6 for their morale check, and they'd have to roll a 12 to actually, like, flee. So probably just technically immune to morale checks. Certainly not an easy target. It's also a ghost. Do we have stats for a ghost of any kind? Yes. So you could probably just use the stats here for a ghost, which is pretty much close enough. You probably still want the whale ability, because that's kind of key to a banshee. But yeah, the ghost stats here: 13 AC, 27 HP. It's got 2 death touch attacks that do 1d8, and life drain that drains your con. Or it can possess a target, inhabiting their body and controlling its actions for 2d4 rounds. It's immune to morale checks, and it's only damaged by silver or magical sources. I think specifically we'd want to just grab that, the greater undead kind of trait. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. Not an easy target. So we could step in there and kind of sneak around maybe and grab some books, but I as a player would probably just avoid this room, even without knowing, like, what's in there. And what's in there is basically a 1 out of 6 chance of searching the shelves each round, I would imagine, to grab an interesting or useful book. And how exactly useful it is, it's hard to say, but you'll note that the King in Yellow is one of the books you can find, along with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Multiverse, the Philosophy of Time Travel, the Hyperion Cantos, Rules for Fantastic Medieval War Games, nice, and Le Mort d'Arneson. Nice nod to Dave Arneson there. Okay, anyways, we're just gonna close the door and tiptoe away from that nonsense, and then we'll check out room number 11. We're making good progress here. So let's listen at the door. That's what we do. Hey, a crit. I think this is his second listening crit. He still has yet to use that luck token. All right, well, if anything's in there, we fucking hear it for sure. The scriptorium. Thick, iron-banded door, and it's locked. There is nothing living in there. There is no sound of any kind. Well, it's a locked door, and that means goodies. So our little gnome is going to pick that lock. No problem. Yep, 21, thanks to advantage. So pick that open real good, and our fighter will step in. Chelonians, I looked up. They're turtles. They're turtle people. So that's cool. It's like Franklin with a longsword. So in there we see a giant roll top desk and a chair. Now it says that the back of the desk is honeycombed with pigeonholes, 3 of which house scrolls. Including speak with animals, silence, 15-foot radius, cure light wounds, detect magic, read magic, light, and stone to flesh, as well as 1 cursed scroll. We would have to actually think, though, to search and check the back of the desk. Actually, I'm not sure if that's what they're intending there. The back of the desk. I've never seen a roll top desk in person, so let me just Google this real quick. Yeah, I know that it rolls up to cover it. I got that. Okay, so I think at this image that I'm looking in, where there's a bunch of like little sort of cubbies, I think that's what they intend. So I think these scrolls are visible. I don't think this is a search. So we've got a bunch of scrolls. One of them is cursed. So I have here a supplement called Treasure to Die For. I don't know if we have... Yeah, so it's got cursed potions you could go with. It's got various curse tables for potions, armor, weapons, and utility items. And then it's got a bunch of, like, fun known magic items. It's a really nice supplement for sure. But I don't think we've got cursed scrolls in anywhere. Which is, funnily enough, the name of the main Shadowdark supplements, Cursed Scrolls. Again, this would be one of those situations where, at my table, if someone wanted to read the Cursed Scroll and activate it, I would roll on my D1000 list of random magical effects. And some of those could be good. It's true. I mean, plenty of them are technically good. But a lot of them are just unpredictable or strictly kind of negative. So, you know, it's something. Now, we do not have a single character that can utilize a scroll. You either have to have a wizard of some type or a bard, I believe, can activate scrolls. So we have nothing. I'm not even sure if we would recognize that they are magic scrolls. Now, in old school, I guess thieves could also theoretically use scrolls. Again, I'm lenient. In this case, I'd probably say, you know, based on like the runes sort of inscribed on these parchments, any adventurer could tell that they are magical scrolls. They're not just like this guy's grocery list, essentially. But none of them can read these runes. None of them could activate the magic contained within. So all we know is that they're magic. The problem is, it's just a bunch of gibberish. So there's actually a lot of scrolls here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scrolls. And I would imagine each one takes up a slot. So we're gonna have to start dumping stuff here if we wanna if we wanna take along scrolls. So I think we're about to run out on a torch. So who's using that torch? That's Quinn's torch. Yeah. So he'll have an extra slot coming up. I'm gonna dump this flask or bottle. And Sylvarin will dump one of the torches. Honestly, I'm tempted to dump the magical grow, but, he's a plant dude, so he kind of likes it. So I'm just going to write this scroll 1, and we'll just kind of keep track of the list. And he'll grab scroll 2, and he'll grab scroll 3. Fucking the priest is carrying 4 torches. That's way too many. And he has 2 flints and steel, so let's dump several of these things. Scroll 4, scroll 5, scroll 6, and then I can't specifically dump out or not take the 8th scroll, which is the cursed one. So we'll have to take it along. All right, I'm gonna reset. I'm gonna start a new torch at this point, and the fighter will take scroll 8. Okay. So new timer for a torch, and I'm gonna roll a random encounter while we're here. Still nothing. This has been a very uneventful trip. Okay. We took all 8 magical scrolls. Also, the drawers contain many sheets of clean parchment, several exotic feather quills, ink wells, and a magnifying glass that imparts a +1 to characters' search checks. Which is just kind of funny. I can't imagine almost any scenario, realistically, where a magnifying glass will assist you in finding, like, a secret door. That seems so far-fetched. I would offer it to players, obviously. Basically, if you're holding it and you use it, it's like a +1 to your wisdom rolls when you're searching for something specifically. So that's not listening, but we'll give it to the priest regardless. Magnifying glass. So I think all of that's potentially pretty valuable. Scrolls, I don't think are too negligible when it comes to their value. Doubt I would get any sort of price listed. Because especially in my homebrew setting, scrolls are purchasable. But I don't know if in any OSR game. Well, here's a whole article about it. From Skirples. How much is a spell worth? Here are the 3 main options. Spells are expensive. A copy of Magic Missile is worth as much as a farm. Spells are cheap. A copy of Magic Missile is worth as much as a chicken. Spells are not for sale. They are eldritch bargains or self-taught or untranslatable. So then he goes into, like, how does that affect a setting when you can just buy magic scrolls? The thing is, regardless, you still have to kind of be a wizard, you know, in order to utilize it. Um, says spells from 1 to 6 on a wizard spell list could be sold to 10 gold pieces to another wizard. So that would be like a gold in our case. That seems a little low. They are one-time use, and you have to be kind of a magic user already to utilize them. But I don't know. I'd probably bump it up more to 5 gold for us. Maybe. Either way, I'm going to say the whole thing's worth 2 XP. It usability certainly up there. Even though we can't use them, but still. I'm going to give 2 XP for that haul, along with the magnifying glass. Okay, good. Moving on. We're going to head up the hallway then to door 13. And the priest will listen. He got a 21. The study. Does he hear anything? So there is the homunculus. And it will attack anyone aside from Tazamak or the servants who enter the room. The homunculus. Can I get an exact image of what you mean by a homunculus? Okay, well, I see this thing with, like, massive hands and a weird face. I don't know if that's what they intend. What about D&D? What's a D&D homunculus? Okay, this is a lot different. This looks like a little kind of furry bat creature with wings that walks on 2 legs. It's kind of cute, really. But there's creepier looking versions of it. I think this is more what they intend. It can fly. Yeah. Okay. So it's got an AC of 13. It's got about 9, 10 hit points. Does 1d3 damage. And the bite might induce sleep. Morale of 11. I don't think it's going to be too easy to find an equivalent creature in Shadowdark. I'm not really sure what I would even look for. It's like a little gremlin. It's like an imp, maybe. No, we don't have an imp. I have a Grimlow, whatever that is. That's a tall, oval-shaped mammal. No. Yeah, I don't know if I have many... There's a fairy, but that doesn't seem right. Actually, it's not that far off. It's got a needle that does damage and causes you to make a con save or fall into a deep sleep. And it can fly. This is just like a more powerful fairy, essentially. Okay, so what would we hear? This thing exists. It's in the room. He rolled really well on his listen. He's got a 21, so he definitely hears it if it's alive. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be undead or anything like that. I mean, this is a physical creature, so He might hear some very, like, light shuffling. Basically, I would say it sounds like there's some sort of small creature in there. That's all the information, really, I would provide, because it's not going to make that much noise. um... Yeah, I mean, we want to check out the room, right? We're not just going to avoid every room that has some sort of sound in it, because you can enter a room that doesn't have any sounds in it and still get fucked. So at least this way we can prepare. Quinn can give the torch to someone else and have his longsword out. We'll have Urlmar cast Holy Weapon on his longsword. So let me roll for that. He rolled a 3. Do I want to spend a luck token on that? Not really, because I feel like he's never going to get that luck token back now. He's not going to roll another 20 for the rest of the adventure. I mean, Holy Weapon is good, but is it that good? Is it luck token worthy? I mean, we're still going to get the spell to go off, but then that's it. He has a pretty low chance of succeeding anyways. His spellcasting numbers are not amazing. He needs an 8 or higher to cast it successfully. We'll just let it go. We're just gonna let it go, and that's it for Holy Weapon. This is our one time. And so that makes it a magical weapon, which it already is, and gives it +1 to attack and damage. So Quinn is swinging at +4 now. And dealing 1d8 +2 damage. And then he's going to have... we're going to have Urlmar rush in with him, kind of right behind him. And then the thief will hopefully maybe like peek around the corner and get a backstab with the crossbow. Okay, that's the plan. For whatever's in there, we don't know technically. We just know that it's a small creature. So we're going to bum rush it. Okay, so we burst in. And it just says that the homunculus familiar lingers here, and it attacks anyone who enters the room. Doesn't really say where it's lingering. It's definitely not in the armchair, because that's empty. And overall, this room is a study, so it's got this huge, intricately carved wooden desk, which occupies nearly a third of the room. In the west wall, between 2 windows, is a small dormant fireplace. There's a gnarled quarterstaff mounted above the mantel. So I think probably it's like kind of lingering behind the desk, most likely. It's not going to be sitting in the middle of the room. I think it is kind of tucked away a little bit. So we kind of heard he rolled very well. As that was not an easy check. But he did kind of hear it shuffling a little bit from behind the desk. So we burst in, ready to go. Quinn's sword is gleaming, and it doesn't look like there's anything in here. We're still on our toes. We're wary. But I think the homunculus then is just going to kind of blindly rage forth. Like, it's not going to sneak around to try and ambush us or anything. I don't think it's that intelligent. I don't think so. So we're just going to attack. It's just going to attack, so it clambers over the desk. Looking kind of cute, but also quite vicious. And then it you know, it's going to lunge for Quinn, and that's where we'll roll initiative. So again, we get a +3, and the homunculus, going off of D&D 5th edition stats, it gets a +2. And one of the conversion guides for Shadowdark kind of recommends that you can just grab like 5th edition stat lines for like their attributes. And I don't really see much issue with that. If we went with the fairy stats, it would be a +3, but this thing's a little bit less agile than a fairy. So yeah, it gets a +2, we get a +3. Our roll is a 19, his is a 14. We get to go first. So it's sitting on the desk. It's like primed to leap towards Quinn, but we're gonna rush in first. So first, our gnome, Wilmira, she's going to backstab it with her crossbow. I'm ruling it as a backstab because I'm nice. And apparently, according to the designer herself, a backstab could come from just shooting out from between the elves' legs, you know, as a halfling. So, if that counts, then this surely counts. Because we're not in the room, and we heard a sound, we heard a scuffle, and then she popped around the corner and fired her crossbow. So this is going to be +3 on the roll. We rolled a critical fail. So, great. Boy, that's pretty shitty. Yeah, I mean, normally, I guess I would say that this shot is gonna hit one of our buddies. You know, it's certainly in Shadowdark at the very least, there is definitely like critical hits and critical fails. And if you're casting a spell and you roll a 1, you know, you roll on the mishap table, or you have to do penance, you know, if you're a priest. And so I think therefore, if you're not a caster and you roll a 1 on an attack of some kind, there needs to be some sort of effect other than just, well, you miss. So how that, you know, how that manifests depends on the situation, depends on the DM. For a crossbow, obviously the crossbow itself could like snap. Or it could be damaged and suffer like a penalty to its rolls until it's repaired. Or in this case, the most likely is that she quickly popped out. It's kind of dark in there. There's a lot of shadows. It's a small target. So she probably is going to hit one of the other two. So I think, again, I tend to be pretty lenient, especially when you're dealing with characters that have 1 health. So there's a few different ways you could rule this, but they are kind of getting shot in the back, so it's not like their AC matters too much here. I think I don't know if I would specifically declare it to be just like 50-50. It's hitting one of you. You know, we'll just see whoever rolls lower on a d20. You could do it that way if you want to guarantee that it's hitting one of them. But the thing is, if it doesn't hit either of them and just flies onto a wall, that's the same as a miss and kind of nullifies the 1. And a lot of players do think that critical failures are just not good game design. And especially if you have a system where you like fighters and stuff get more attacks per round. Like if you end up with 4 attacks every round or something, and you always have a 5% chance to just get fucked, that's pretty shitty. Shadowdark, however, is pretty strict about only having 1 attack per character per round. So it's somewhat fair. Overall, I always tend to like critical hits and critical fails. I just think it makes it a little bit more exciting, but I could see the arguments against it. And if I were playing in a game and the DM said, yeah, there isn't really any difference, there's no critical hits, there's no critical fails, it'd be like, okay, it's fine. So for our purposes, I think we are going to kind of go with a 50-50. So between Quinn and Earlmar, whoever rolls lower on a d6. Earlmar got a 2, Quinn got a 1. So it's definitely Quinn. This is very much technically a backstab. In all definitions of it. So I feel like I kind of want to just do the backstab damage, which is 3d6. Very hefty. 13 damage. Yeah, he gets dropped. Takes a bolt to the spine. Very unfortunate. Sylvarin is holding the torch, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. So Sylvarin can't use his bow. It's an unfortunate situation that we don't have a character that just has a hand free at any time to hold the torch. We really could use the light spell. Okay, so Quinn goes down from a crossbow bolt to the spine. But we still have Earlmar there, so he's going to swing his longsword. He rolls a 15, which is enough to hit. And we're going with 9 health on this thing. Yeah. So 1d8, 8 damage. Okay. So, damn. I mean, we fucking crucify this thing. It's still lingering on ever so barely. It's technically Sylvarin's turn, but there isn't much that he's going to do. He could maybe rush forward. Quinn does get a turn here, so we have to roll a d4 plus his con. So 2 rounds. He's got 2 rounds to live. Starting now. So 2 more rounds. Handra could rush forward and maybe make a solve real quick and just whip it up and feed it to him. I don't know if you would do all that in one combat round, but you know, it's 1 HP. It's if you would let a priest cast Cure Wounds on a round, I think you can let the ranger prepare this real quick. So I guess that's what Sylvarin will do. So this is an int check. We need a DC of 11. We failed. So we can't cast... we can't make a solve again for the rest of the day. And then it's going to be the homunculus' turn. I don't see anywhere where it's immune to morale checks. So we're going to just follow Shadowdark morale rules, where it has to make a DC 15 wisdom save. And its wisdom mod, according to 5th edition, is a +0. So it needs to roll 15 or higher on this d20. It rolled a 1. He is out of there. He's going to just, like, fly through the window and probably die from the glass shards and the impact and stuff. So he just, like, was so mortified by this strike that the priest delivered. Panicked and flew into a window and broke it and died. But the sound of a crashing window, plus the fact that I think I got to make 2 random encounter checks here, in a not very good timing. So let's roll the first one for the window break. Nothing. And then the time pass. There's our 1. We finally got a random encounter in a pretty bad moment. So we're going to roll on this d6 house encounter table. We got a 6. Okay, so a ghost appears behind us. So we're all in the room now. I would probably say that Erlmar is going to rush over to cast Cure Wounds real quick. So we'll let that go off. He does cast it and heals for 6. Very good. So Quinn is conscious, and they're kind of looking over the room as a ghost floats in, and they feel just like cold wash over them before they even see this ghost enter. And so this regal looking woman ghost floats in and looks at the 4 characters. And she's unable to speak, so she uses hand gestures, sort of bidding them to come with her and approach. And then she starts floating back down the hall. And that's where it would be up to the characters to decide to follow her or not. She heads to the lavatory, the first room that we checked out, where we found her skeleton. So she needs a proper burial before her soul may depart for the afterlife. So if we follow her to the lavatory, she gestures to her skeleton. And I don't know how do you communicate? How do you charades a burial? I mean, I guess you could do it somewhat comically. Where she could pantomime like a shovel digging the ground, and then like her hands lowering her body in, and then like putting her hands on the side of her head like she's sleeping. I think if you did that, most players would be able to figure it out. Anything less than that, though, like if she's still trying to maintain like a regal bearing and not trying to be humorous, it'd probably be a little tricky. Because it would end up probably being a little vague, where she would just like point to the skeleton and then fade away, and then it'd be like, what should we do? Clever players, of course, will think that, oh, we should bury the skeleton. The ghost is still around. This needs a burial. My players probably need the full pantomime. So, should the characters refuse to follow her, or refuse to bury her remains, or simply misunderstand her gestures for too long, she loses her temper, and we get into a fight with a ghost, and we would just use the ghost stats here. Which are ghost stats here are pretty tough in Shadowdark, but they are a lot easier than the ghost stats as presented here. It has a fucking 19 AC. It's got like 45 health. Its touch ages a target 1d4 times 10 years. So, yeah. I don't want to get into a fight with this thing. So I'm going to pretend that my players my characters are all clever. So they will follow the ghost back the way they came. And it will gesture towards its skeleton and fade away. So, they're smart enough. We got some smart characters here, right? We got a +1 intelligence, +3 intelligence. Handra is really sort of stat-wise, like sort of the protagonist, and yet she's been like the least useful character in this whole thing. Part of that I chalk up to being a ranger, and part of that I chalk up to the 1 HP. So she's just not going into melee. Even though the priest is, but the priest has higher AC due to the shield and, you know, the longsword. Because he got +1 to melee attack rolls. And I keep handing off the torch to Handra. So, you know, it's not great. But okay, so we're gonna take the skeleton outside. We're gonna pause the torch timer. Technically, I don't think you can actually like extinguish a torch and then relight it to get the time back. I think if you extinguish the torch, it is done. So I didn't you know, we have a shovel. That's one shovel. We don't have any other abilities or magic that would help us dig this. So it's sort of a matter of how long does it take to dig a grave. I don't think we have to go 6 feet deep. I don't know. I've never even I don't dig things. Here's in the real world, how long does it take to dig a 6-foot grave? Eight to 10 hours when they first started digging graves. That's pretty wild. We're not going 6 feet. I don't know what's like the minimum accepted amount for a ghost in order to lay it to rest. A foot? I mean, I guess you just want to cover it. It doesn't even really have to be under the earth, really. I mean, you could make like a cairn or whatever. You could just stack rocks on it. And as long as you have we have a priest, you know, you can say the proper rites and everything. We don't really have to dig. We could burn it, but it's a skeleton. So I think we're gonna dig. Let's say 2 hours. Now the problem is that actually no, fuck that. We saw a cemetery. When the thief was spying on the backyard, she saw a cemetery. And I'm pretty sure some of those are open graves. Freshly dug graves. Now, she didn't see that the ones that are freshly dug bear the characters' names, so we're going to find that out. But there would be no reason why these 4 wouldn't take the skeleton to the backyard, especially because that would make the most sense. So, yeah, we're going to carry the skeleton to the back. I'm going to raise this torch because it's still cloudy out. You know, it's drizzling, but it's light enough that we don't need a torch. So that torch has been expended. We're done with that one. We're waiting to light a new one. And we carry the skeleton to the back. And here's when we pass by the pond with the giant toad. And I think we just want to do maybe an oracle check. to see if it attacks us at this moment as we're passing through. And then maybe an oracle check while we're burying this thing. And then maybe if it still doesn't attack, maybe another one when we return the way we came. So let's do the first one. We're going to make this just 50-50 pretty much. Does the giant toad attack us on the way to the cemetery? And we rolled a 16. So yes, it does. This is where I would probably have all 4 characters roll a d20. Just to see which one it attacks. So lowest roll is the one it attacks. So in order, left to right. Well, okay. Erlmar got a 1, so that's that. And this is going to be, honestly, probably a surprise attack, unfortunately. So the giant toad is going to get advantage. And this represents a pretty bad problem for the party, because if he goes down, that's our healer, and we already can't make any solve. So the ranger would have to, after this is over, succeed on making the curative remedy to function as a potion of healing to get the priest back up. You can stabilize them so that they're not dying, but that's not healing. If we wanted to just heal him, I think by the rules we would have to spend the night and rest if we have no other means of healing. So, let's roll. I mean, the giant toad might not succeed. Let's go back to our giant frog, which is right here. Yep. So, let's do the... It's a surprise, but I'm going to make the surprise really only matter for the bite attack. So the tongue is going to be... But if he fails to draw him in with the tongue, does that ruin the surprise? No, I guess we're making his whole turn the surprise round. He gets a whole round to do whatever the fuck he wants, because he's ambushing us. So we're going to do the tongue. If he fails the tongue, he's going to hop out of the pond in order to bite the priest. It's a little harsh. That's what we're doing, though. So first, the priest is rolling his dex save. He's got a +1. He failed. So the tongue wraps around and pulls him in. And he's next to the toad. He's next to well, he's like in the water, I guess. Yeah, I guess he's in the water. He get pulled into the water. And now the giant toad is doing a +2 bite with advantage. Okay. Technically hit on both. So it's absolutely a hit. Damage is irrelevant because the priest is at 0. It's one of those situations where I could very well see an argument for like a lasting injury. And one of the Shadowdark supplements does have like wounds in it. But for just this one shot, we're going to ignore that. Okay, so now we roll initiative. We get the +3. The giant frog gets a +2. Our initiative is a 9. His is a 13. So the frog goes again. He could sit there and just munch on the priest and devour him, but we'll say that he recognizes other threats. So he's going to try to tongue the... he's going to tongue Quinn. How about that? I know. And this is how I tend to DM normally. I tend to pick on the fighter, the tank, the warrior, the one that wants to be targeted. Dickish DM will always, of course, kind of target the cloth wearers, the squishies. But I figure the fighter likes to be in the thick of it. He likes to get picked on. Let him do his thing. My combats don't tend to be too tough most of the time. But okay, so Quinn has to roll his dex save. He also fails. He could luck token. Which is smart. Just because we want to draw the frog out of the water. So yeah, Quinn's going to use his luck token. Okay, he succeeded. So the tongue doesn't pull him in. He doesn't budge. He's sturdy as shit. It's a dex save, but I feel like he's more just like girding himself. But this is where grit with dex would have come in handy. And then the frog is going to leap out of the water, showing his true size, his massive form, and he's going to try and bite Quinn instead. So this is +2 normally. Definitely a fail. Bounces harmlessly off his nice shield. So now it's our turn. We're going to roll for Erlmar on how many turns he gets to live. He rolled 1. So he has 1 round to live. If we don't somehow heal him this round, he's dead man. So, of course, Handra will rush forward and try and make this curative remedy. So he needs a 12 or higher. And he does have a luck token. We're probably going to have to use it. Let's see it. Nope, he got it. Nice. So he's going to make this curative remedy and immediately administer it. And that brings Erlmar back up. Awesome. Erlmar does not get a turn this round. Quinn is going to, of course, swing his longsword, as he does. So this is +3. The holy weapon wore off, obviously. 15 is definitely enough to hit. 1d8 +1. 6 damage to this giant frog. Good. He's got 4 health left. Mira will fire her crossbow, of course. This is not a backstab, so just straight up. Nice. Definitely a hit. 1d6 damage. Only 2. Okay, so the frog's got 2 health left. Definitely calls for a morale check. No doubt. He's got +0 on his wisdom. He just barely managed to make it. So he's hungry. He's pissed. He's going to try and devour Quinn. The tongue doesn't really matter in this case. It's just a bite, and he crit. Okay, he crit, so that's 2d6 damage for 8 total. Quinn is down. Ouch. Okay, Handra is going to finally shoot a longbow. We're going to make it happen, man. Here it is. Fail. Fuck it, luck token. That's a horrible waste. Also a fail. Alright, fuck it. Handra, you're just shit. I had such high hopes for this character. Mira will reload, so that's her move action, and then she'll fire her crossbow again. Also fail. She'll use her luck token. That is a 12, which is enough. 1d6 damage. Whoops. 2 damage. That's all we needed. Giant frog goes down. Okay. Whew. Quinn's gonna live for 3 rounds. So Erlmar will get out of the pond and cast Cure Wounds. Succeeds. 6 health back. Done. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're going to roll our usage dice for the arrows and crossbow bolts. So the arrows, no problem. Bolts, no problem. All right. Okay. Excellent. We survived. We're really no worse for wear as than when we came in. Technically, if we searched the muck at the bottom of the pond, we'd find a ring of weakness. which is a cursed ring that reduces your strength to 3, and then cannot be removed until you remove the curse. Awesome. It's such a fuck you. Like, it's so insanely a fuck you moment of having a player think to like search the muck at the bottom of this pond where a giant toad lived. It's like, oh, you find a ring. It's like, oh, a ring. It's magical. I put it on. Oh, your strength is 3 now. Forever. Sorry, buddy. A 3 strength. That means you're -4 modifier. It's insane. So, no, we're not gonna... We have a job to do with the skeleton. So, we're going to, yeah, man, that would have been... If Handra had fucked up making the curative remedy... I guess because of our ruling on spellcasting, he couldn't have fucked it up that bad. Because even if he failed, I would still make it. And which is not the official rules. That's not the official rules for spellcasting. So I'm almost certain that's not the rules for herbalism. But that's how I am running it. That's how I think it should be. In that if you fail, it still goes off once. So that means no matter what, at least once per day, the ranger can make a potion of healing. At least once per day, a priest can cure wounds. I don't think that's unreasonable. And I would question the designer of the game on why she didn't just make that the rule. Because just imagine that, like, you're playing Shadowdark, you're the priest of the group, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take cure wounds so I can be really useful. I can be the healer of the group. This is gonna be great. And then you get into a battle, someone gets injured, and they're like, oh, or like they're dead, they're dying, they're about to die, and it's like, okay, I can cure wounds, and then you fail. Like, even maybe barely fail. Like, you roll like a 10 instead of the 11 you needed. It's like, oh, well, sorry, the spell doesn't go off, and you can't cast it for the rest of the day, and that person died. It's like, maybe that's sort of an OSR, old school sort of experience, but that doesn't really seem like a Shadowdark experience, or how it should be. So, yeah, that's how I would rule it. So, no matter what, the ranger was going to get the potion of healing effect off, so Romar was going to get back up. But if we didn't have that, if we had no other healing, our priest would have died, and then Quinn would have died, and then possibly the whole party would have died to the giant toad. So the ranger did kind of come in clutch there, because there's not that many sources of like quick healing at level 1. Anyways, we pick the skeleton back up, and we go over to the cemetery. Here we now see that beneath the boughs of an ancient white oak, there are 24 headstones, some of which preside over open, freshly dug graves bearing the characters' names. Very ominous, very spooky. How did this happen? Weather and the passage of time have erased the legends from the other headstones. So there's also a dryad living in the oak tree. She's lonely but cautious. She attempts to charm any character foolish enough to linger here alone. I think probably in this case a group of 4 altogether that just slaughtered a giant toad. She's going to be pretty cautious, so she's probably going to be very stealthy. If anyone says that they're specifically examining the tree, I'd give them a roll to maybe find the dryad, but otherwise she's pretty blended in. There's also a secret door on the southern wall here, so technically the northern wall of the home, but we're busy with this burial, so we're not going to bother. So what I think we're going to do... we're not going to disturb a different grave. Like, we're not going to take a different headstone, but we're also not going to bury her in a grave that has one of our headstones on it. So I think what we're going to do is, like, put her in one of the freshly dug graves, then remove the headstone for that grave. You know, say it's Quinn's. Let's just say it's Quinn's. And then we're just going to do, like, a very simple like, where you put, like, a cross with 2 sticks together. We'll just make one of those, and we'll put there, and then we'll use the shovel to, like, bury the skeleton. And then Earl Mar will say his rites, his funeral sort of rites, for this person, this unfortunate soul, so that they may be at peace. And it says that doing so... Hold on. It's in the random encounter. Doing so, burying her remains nets the character's 100 XP. So we're just going to take 1 XP. Alright, and that probably didn't take a massive amount of time, but I am going to do a random encounter roll check during that process. Okay, we're fine. So now we head back into the house. We're going to relight a torch. So it's this torch now. 60 minutes on the clock. And we're heading back. And we want to go back to the room we were in, number 13. Because we didn't really search it before the ghost came in. So we find a quarterstaff +1 above the mantle. Now, similarly, we might notice that it's yeah, for just like a +1 weapon, that's almost like a masterwork weapon, kind of, like in Pathfinder. So I feel like in that case, probably you can just tell that it's kind of just enhanced in some, like, it just feels better in your hands, you know. I don't know. It wouldn't be one of those things where, because as a DM, I wouldn't really want to keep track. Because if they start using it in combat, and then I forget to tell them to, like, oh, you find out that it actually swings a little better, and you add +1. Or even worse, like, they tell me their attack number, and then I mentally add a +1 to it so that they don't technically know. It's like, fuck all that. So for something like this, it's just a numerical thing that I don't want to try to keep track of. Just tell them it's a +1 quarterstaff when they grab it. So then they know they can mark it on their sheet, and then it's out of my hands. So yeah, we're going to take that, and we're just going to swap out Handra's staff for a +1 staff. So this becomes +3 and 1d4 +1 damage. Is that worth an XP? Probably. +1 weapons? I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. Let's add another XP. So we're up to 6 out of 10. We're doing pretty well. Okay, and while Handra's grabbing that staff and rubbing it, what else do we see? The desk. So Valmira's going to search the desk, and she finds a single item within the whole desk. A cut and polished onyx gemstone with the letter R inlaid in gold. It's a Ragnarok. Clever. Appendix B. Ragnarok. Should the possessor of this little onyx gem die, he is instantly resurrected, fully healed, and teleported to the safest place he remembers. The gem's magic functions only once. Wow. That is fucking awesome. Okay, well, while Mira is pocketing that, I feel like I have to give another XP for that. That seems absurdly good. That's almost like a 3 XP thing. There's no downside to that whatsoever. It's just amazing. That's really cool. They would probably, like, the average party would probably just sell it, though. Unless they find out that it's magical. Otherwise, it's just an onyx gemstone. I mean, it's a nice one, but... On a small circular table by the armchair is a bottle of absinthe and a pewter chalice. For each draft of absinthe the character imbibes, there's a cumulative 10% chance that he or she will have a brief, hallucinatory encounter with the Green Fairy, as well as a cumulative -1 penalty to hit, damage, and saves. Treat characters visited by the fairy as though they are under the effects of a true scene spell. The penalties in the true scene end once a character has slept for 8 hours. Bottle contains enough for 10 drafts. Okay. Bottle of absinthe. Yeah, much like the liqueurs and stuff, I think we'll leave all that there. Okay. Overall, a pretty nice room. Well handled. Let's move up. I'm not really sure what this map is meant to represent. There's a door here, but... Ah. Characters can never come closer than 20 feet from the door to this room. As they advance, it withdraws. The room can only be accessed via the ivy-covered secret door adjacent to the garden cemetery. Okay. That's a fantastic little puzzle. It's one of those things that your players will likely come up with some absurd attempts to try to get to that door and get into that room. Yeah, I mean, all sorts of fun stuff could happen. Where they, like, you know, like I attach a rope to a crossbow bolt and shoot it into the door, and then hold on to the rope as we, like, try and pull it forward to get to the door. So, yeah, I don't know. I imagine I could see something that I might allow to just brute force it, rather than going around to the other side. But yeah, it's one of the... I could definitely see players spending like an hour just trying to get into this room through this withdrawing door. That's fantastic. So I guess I could see that the thief might have the idea, like, oh, maybe there's another entrance, you know, in another part of the house or something. Maybe on the other side. So if we go back outside and we head around at some point, maybe we'll check it out that way so we can get into the room. But for now, let's just carry on, and we're finally going to... We're being very methodical here, but we're going to go into the big Great Hall. So I already read this description. It's an enormous echoing hall open to the floor above. Massive skeleton of a dragon hanging 20 feet above the floor. Tapestries depicting famous episodes in the history of Tazamak's legendary adventuring group, the Pentaveret, cover the walls. In the northwest corner stands a 6-foot-tall golden harp, which is actually a cursed magical instrument known as a discordant harp. I mean, a group such as this wouldn't be able to really carry the harp, so they wouldn't take it with them, and since they're trying to be as quiet as possible, they wouldn't play the harp even if it wasn't cursed. But playing the harp causes confusion as the spell to every creature within 30 feet, including the player. Delightful. Do we have confusion as a spell in this game? Yep, we do. Tier 4 wizard spell. The target can't take actions, and it moves in a random direction on its turn. Okay. So if we're all just sitting here and we play it, you know, it's it's not really that big of a deal. I don't know what the original spell looks like. Confusion for OSC. Okay, it's definitely worse originally. This confusion is toned down. Originally, you'd roll a 2d6 on each turn. 6 to an 8, no action. 9 to 12, you attack the subjects. Okay, so you attack your own group on a 9 to a 12. 2 to 5, you attack the caster's group. So yeah, there's definitely chance for attacking your own party members in that situation. For the purposes of this harp, I might use the original confusion spell rules. But yeah. Okay. So other than that, there's not really a whole lot in here. There's 2 sets of staircases leading up, but there's also an open entryway leading to another room straight ahead of us. So let's just go ahead and poke our heads in there. This is the conservatory. The entire northern wall is made up of large glass panes, and a dozen raised brick planters surround a beautiful 3-tiered fountain. Alas, the fountain is dry, the soil is long since dried up, and all the plants and flowers are withered and dead. Using the magical grow plant food here immediately restores the plants to full health and vibrancy. The exotic plants and flowers thus revived include, but are not limited to, nightshade, witch hazel, foxglove, asphodel, hemlock, wormwood, and monkshood, otherwise known as wolfsbane. Some of these plants may be useful to characters who know something of herbalism. Casual handling of them is of course quite dangerous and may require a save versus poison depending on the Labyrinth Lord's disposition. You know what? Handra loves plants, wants to see them restored. I'm going to use up all the magical grow, bringing them back to life. And I would say if a player did that, you know, we're not really getting into nitty gritty of herbalism. So in this specific case, I'd say that, you know, it restores the use of solve for the rest of the day, and the player can make any one herbal remedy right now for free. I think we're just gonna make a solve real quick for Quinn to get him back to full health. Okay, nice. Moving on. We're gonna head upstairs now, finally. Oh no, we have other rooms, I'm sorry. We have these doors on the right. So let's check out this nice set of double doors. Let's have the priest listen. He got a 13. It's not overwhelming. It would have to be something not super subtle. It's the dining room. Okay, this one's tricky. Although the chairs are unoccupied, the chaotic jumble of shadows in the room would appear to indicate the presence of 7 people enjoying a lively dinner party. Characters will barely have time to register this incongruity before the shadows peel themselves from the walls and floor and attack. I don't think there's any sound coming from this room. It's also a pretty fucking dangerous room. I don't know if we have stats for shadows in Shadowdark. You'd think so, right? Shadow. Okay. 12 AC, 15 HP. That's a fuck ton. at this level. No one is going to one-shot anything. There's 7 of these. They get 2 attacks at +2 each round, dealing 1d4, and it's a DC 12 con check, or their strength is reduced by 1. At 0 strength, target dies and becomes a shadow. So they become worse at combat every time they get hit. Not to mention d4 damage, which is enough to kill 3 of my characters outright. Yeah. Very potentially fatal encounter. But it says that each shadow's life force is tied to one of the candles in the chandelier overhead. So extinguishing a candle kills a shadow. Smashing the window in the east wall allows the howling wind to come rushing into the room and immediately extinguishes all of the candles. So if you think of that, I suppose, if I was being kind and generous and lenient and the players were actually trying to fight these things, I would probably give a heavy hint that it seems like the shadows are almost originating or extending, or being caused in some way by the faint light from the candles on the chandelier. And then players might think, oh shit, we gotta extinguish all of them. But again, I'm a very lenient DM, and I would not expect most DMs to give any sort of hint like that. But like, it's the only light. It's one of the only lights really in the whole house. It's very unusual that there are lights on in this place. There's the fireplace, and then this chandelier with 7 lights, 7 candles. So I think a clever group or an experienced group could very well figure that out on their own. But fortunately, the shadows will not pursue characters who flee the room. So Earlmar gives us the all clear. There's no sound in there. Quinn pops open the door. He sees this sort of lively party of shadows along the walls. And then they all suddenly like turn at him and start moving through the air, and he closes the door. And they probably all like back up, and brace themselves, but nothing emerges. There really isn't much treasure in there either. There's 32 pieces of fine silverware and 8 china place settings. A little tricky to carry out of a back to town, and probably not worth an extensive amount. So yeah, fuck that room. Then we'll check the other door here to room number 9. Priest listens, fails utterly, and it is a kitchen. So he doesn't hear anything. He gives the all clear. So Quinn, our usual strat here. This is dungeon crawling, baby. Quinn opens the door, and we see a diverse assortment of cooking utensils hanging from pegs lining the walls. In the center of the room is a knife-scarred wooden table, and there's a wide, shallow fireplace fitted with cooking hooks of varying lengths. Atop the table is a jar labeled cookies. In the jar is the soul of an evil necromancer named Braden the Most Black, who attempts to magic jar anyone who lifts the cookie jar's lid. Okay, now we need to find out what magic jar does. I imagine it's a 5th level spell. Caster's body enters a comatose trance as their life force is transferred into a receptacle. From there, the caster may attempt to possess the bodies of other creatures. Victim may save versus spells to resist possession. So if the cookie jar is destroyed, then the necromancer will die. His soul extinguishes. But while in control of a victim, he gains full control over their body, but is not able to make the victim cast spells. If the jar is destroyed while they're possessing a victim, though, then the caster's life force is trapped in the possessed body. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It's it's definitely a dangerous little encounter here. Because your options are somewhat limited in this case. You either smash the jar immediately, which is the smartest option. And I think plenty of players would be quite wary of the ominous-looking cookie jar in the middle of this kitchen in this haunted mansion. I don't know if they'd smash it necessarily, but probably would not open it. But definitely some players will. Then they would have to make a save. I don't think we have any... Well, we have the ghost stats, right? That was a possession thing. So the ghost... It's a contested charisma check. Okay. And that... Okay, the ghost has +4. So I'd probably give this guy like a +4 on his roll for charisma. And then, yeah, it's kind of straight up RNG there. At least you can use a luck token. Yeah. So then, if you succeed on that, you know that there was like a possession attempt made, and then you probably either run away or smash the jar. But if you are successfully possessed, he immediately just starts attacking people. So if he possesses like your fighter, that's a pretty big problem. And then I think like if you... I'm not quite sure if you knock them out, because it says if the possessed victim is killed, the caster's life force returns to the magic jar. I would probably say if they're knocked out, it goes back. If they drop to 0, they go back. So it could potentially lead to, I would say, maybe a TPK. Obviously, worst case scenario. Most likely, no one's going to touch it. Yeah. In an elongated glass box attached to the wall near the door to the dining room and bearing the label, "In case of fire, break glass," is a wand of flame extinguishing with 3 charges remaining. Extinguishes any fire up to 20 cubic feet. That's pretty fun. That's nice. I like that. But I think if I would rule in this case that no one touches the cookie jar because it's ominous, I think I'd also have to rule that no one's going to touch the "in case of fire, break glass" thing. And we don't really want to break glass. We don't like to make noise. I have to make a random encounter check. Okay, we're fine. So I think in this case, we just back out of the room. But there is another door, presumably to a pantry. So let's listen. Nothing. Let's open. The larder. Shelves laden with foodstuffs line the walls, and bulging canvas sacks sit heaped in the corners. Some of the food has been expertly preserved in jars, but most of it is rotten or rotting, and the room smells accordingly. So we get hit with just this wave of rotten foodstuffs as soon as we crack open the door. God, it's another one of those just like, why would I go in this room? What are we hoping to find in here that's going to be of use? I don't know. I guess probably some players are quite methodical. They have to check out every room regardless of how horrible it seems, because there might be treasure. It's like there's easier treasure. We can go into another room and find like a +1 longsword or something just on a wall. So the sacks contain grain, flour, beans, etc., except for one which contains yellow mold. Many of the jars, crates, and sacks bear the logo Gnome Farms. On one of the topmost shelves, hidden behind a bunch of other junk, is a dusty can labeled Whoop-Ass, the spinach-like contents of which constitute a potion of super heroism. A tiny hole at the base of the west wall provides access via a potion of diminution or similar means to the pack rat's lair. Okay, well, we don't have something that makes us that small. We're not going to dig around that much to find the whoop-ass can. The can of whoop-ass. And then the yellow mold is... It's not super dangerous. I don't think we have stats for a yellow mold. I don't even know if we have stats for any kind of mold. We have stats for an ooze, but that's not really the same thing. Actually, do we even have stats? We have some sort of stats for an ooze. We have an ochre jelly. Yeah, it's not quite the same at all. So I would run it as this, which is, it doesn't have an AC. You always hit it if you attack it. It's got 9 health. It does 1d6 acid damage and or poisonous spores, which is probably the real threat. Let's see. Okay. What it doesn't tell you, based on the actual stat block here for OSE, is that it's unharmed by all attacks except for fire, and a burning torch does 1d4 damage. So that's a lot trickier. Also, the spores that it releases require a save versus death or die within 6 rounds. So yeah, definitely a bit more threatening than this little tiny stat block showcases. Yeah, but that rotting smell and look of just nothing in there except rotten food is going to dissuade us from checking it out. So let's go upstairs. We'll go up right here on these right side steps. Quinn will lead the way. Wait, what? Where did those stairs lead? Or do those go down? Oh, those go down. Oh, okay. We're going to go down to the basement. There you go. Yes. So we head down the steps to the basement. And we come across a door. Let's listen. No, his hearing is really failing him. But fortunately, he's getting lucky and there's actually nothing to hear. So everyone still trusts him. Okay, so then Quinn will peek through, see what he finds in this horrible basement. This is scary shit. I don't know what's down there. It's a wine cellar. Great wooden casks line the east and west walls of this earthen-floored cellar. 12 of them are filled with wine. An exemplary vintage with earthy undertones and a velvety nose. But one contains a different kind of spirit, a wraith. An area in the south wall that used to contain an archway has been bricked up, a fact any dwarf present has a normal chance of noticing. Otherwise, it must be searched for and detected as a secret door. We don't have a dwarf, but I feel like a bricked up archway is somewhat noticeable. I don't know how you would be able to perfectly blend a bricked up archway in. So, yeah. I would probably, because, you know, there's still the matter of like how they get to the other side of it. So, yeah, I would just point that out, that it looks like there was an archway there, but it was bricked up. Hold on. But anyways, the wraith hiding within the one of the wooden casks. Do we think that this would just immediately emerge as we entered the room? It's not a lightweight, is the problem. I mean, this thing is really tough for a group of level 1 characters. Extremely tough. The stats for Shadowdark, 14 AC, 36 HP, which is mind-bogglingly high in most situations. It gets 3 death touch attacks per round at +6, dealing 1d10 damage and life drain. It's immune to morale checks, and it's only damaged by silver or magical sources. And it can become completely incorporeal, so that it just can't be hit by anything, I guess. It is practically a guaranteed TPK in any sort of fight here that occurs. So I would probably rule it, just because I'm nice, that it's only going to emerge if the players specifically like start checking out the casks and trying to figure out what's in all of them or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's even then, like, because if they start knocking down this bricked up archway, how am I not going to have a wraith come out? It seems extreme. The whole thing seems quite extreme. Fuck. And it's just, you wouldn't know. You would have no clue until it emerges. And then you're fucked. Someone is going to die. Unless you win initiative. All of you win initiative. And all of you immediately recognize how dangerous this thing is and run for your life. Someone is going to die. Seems cruel. Is there any way... I don't know if I'll ever end up running this one for my family or not. It is kind of cool. I like a lot of the ideas here. But for how I run things and how they play, a couple of these things I'm just going to have to tone down to fit more in line with Shadowdark. A Wraith, a level 8 ghost creature at this point is kind of nuts. Okay. So, assuming they get through to the archway and they get to the hallway afterwards, you have to save versus spells or suffer the effects of a fear spell. I don't know if we have that as an option. No. We don't. So if you fail the save, you just flee. You just run for 2 turns. So you probably make it back up to the top of the steps out of the basement. Is probably how I would say it. Assuming you make the save, though, and you keep going, you get to the device. A giant Seussian conglomeration of gears, hoses, dials, gauges, buttons, pistons, valves, and dozens of other like mechanisms. It's currently malfunctioning, which causes it to whistle, bang, knock, grind, clank, and make other less definable sounds. Tampering with it is ill-advised and may, 1 in 20 chance, cause it to explode, destroying everything in a 5-mile radius. Unbeknownst to the characters, the device is ultimately responsible, in some mind-bogglingly tortuous way that no mere mortal could ever understand, for their being here. It's actually a plot device. Excellent. So I don't know what I would change with the wine cellar. I might just throw, like, I don't know, like 4 zombies down there or something like that. Something that's a bit more obvious of a threat that they could maybe, like, ambush somehow. I don't know. That's kind of what I would think. There's also a Ghast, which is that's a greater ghoul. So no, there really Ghost is like the lesser form of the Wraith. There might be something, a supplement that could also work, but yeah, I would probably just throw some zombies down there and call it a day. Yeah, anyways. So now I think we're gonna ignore the whole basement then. We're just gonna have like a kind of a bad feeling about it and be like, fuck this, and go back up. So then we would be going up to the upstairs, and that's where we'll leave it for next time. So next time we're gonna check out the whole upstairs, hopefully, and then there's also the attic. And depending on that, we may all live and make it out and get to level 2 and all that good stuff, or we may all die. Those are probably the only 2 options. For now, though, my name is Mang. This has been solo role manging with Shadowdark, Shadowbrook Manor. See you fine folks in the next part.